Alors, on est de retour sur la scène blanche pour la prochaine conférence qui s'intitule « Qui est responsable de la protection en ligne ?» Alors, explorer le rôle des références sécurisées des gouvernements, du secteur privé et des citoyens dans la protection contre les menaces en ligne pesant sur les données personnelles et les effets de la cyberguerre. Notre conférencier est Mike Cook. Il est PDG d'Identitas. Alors, on peut l'accueillir immédiatement.
Thank you.
Identos.
Identos, that's right. Welcome, everybody. Let's get right into it. We only have 15 minutes and a pretty broad topic. Who's responsible for our online protection? Let's get into it. I think the macro level I wanted to start with is lay the landscape here. We're here and we're now. Is the microphone not on? It's not on, eh? We gotta go louder? Sure. We're being attacked. That's pretty clear. It'll come in the numbers in the next slide. We're being monetized. And guess what? We're being manipulated at scale. That's happening today. And we're not waiting for that's not coming in the future. Unfortunately, we're also being outpaced. We do not keep up with the technology contributions to combat this as a nation. We don't have the required skills at a national level to continue to keep pace with the threats we face. And if I had a third bullet here, it would be the policies required to support us as a nation do not yet exist or have not been refined for today's age. So where do I get this macro view from? Well, the numbers kind of speak for themselves. We are being attacked, as a matter of fact, and it's quite intentful. The purpose by which these attacks are happening and the reason why they're happening is by intent and by design. We're not just being attacked, we're being stolen from. You know what? People are actually interfering with our democratic processes here in Canada. This is big problems for us. These are facts, not fiction. How are we doing as a nation? Great news, we're in the top 20th percentile of the 75 nations audited in the research I had done. That's good. We're on the podium a little bit. The 85% of our companies actually have cyber insurance, indicating that they understand that there's risk, right? They may also have some understanding that we're not impermeable as companies. We have to protect our data and our processes. We finished second in this group of 75 as far as the speed at which we can identify a breach, only bested by Germany internationally. And we're spending now at the appropriate level of our budgets on cybersecurity as a nation. These are all good things. Of 65% of us who expected to get hit by ransomware, only 2% of us did. That means we're doing our jobs. We're expecting to get hit and we're having the right hygiene to be cyber resilient as a nation. But we're still short people and skills as a country. The first bullet on the left side needed its own page. These are from reputable papers quoting government officials here in Canada. This is actually happening. It's not a minor detail, a footnote in a slide. It's important for us to recognize this is that scale that we have to have a solution for. So I asked myself, could we go back to the beginning and look at history to see if we could take some lessons into the future? For how do we protect, and who's responsible to protect online? Here's us, Canadians. We have a daily journey. It usually finishes at some time, variable, with bedtime. We have a government who issues us an ID and lets us exist, which is great. That government provides us services, and we use that identity to get services from our government. We might continue on our journey and use that identity to work together with industry, in this case banking, to get money, to be able to kind of do commerce, improve who we are with our utilities providers. We might be able to do some shopping as a result of that relationship and set up a new relationship with telecommunications providers. And in some cases, we might be buying products and services that require us to prove something about us as well as hand over cash. We also get access to government services that are desperately needed by us just because our government allows us to be a citizen and issues us an identity. We get our news from a limited number of places, which all of their business models are based on reputation and allow us to kind of evaluate their reputation to determine the best place to get our news. So macro level journey of yesteryear. The government comes along and they help us even more by implementing regulation to make sure that we're protected. We have a backstop as citizens against some of the industry who now knows who we are. They know how to evaluate our identity cards and verify who we are. That was issued by a government. And now we've got government stepping in to kind of manage regulation and protection. That's part of their job. As citizens, as we are doing commerce, we have some reasonable expectation of privacy because, the people who are taking our driver's license to verify our age are not writing down our details necessarily, and it's not really economical at scale to kind of breach our privacy in that domain. And there's some level of accountability that comes across this equation. Providers are accountable to government regulation, government's accountable to the free press, people are accountable to verify the trustworthiness of their relationships, and if they're not happy, they take their money and they go somewhere else. Accountability exists and it worked. So, in summary, we've got some observations about the past, and some of these are going to allow us to kind of make some reflections on the future. Less relationships. Government did their job, they gave us an identity. Governments protected us from industry with policy and regulation. Information that we consumed had reputation involved in business models that supported reputation so we could evaluate them as citizens. What's really interesting is that people monetized the service, not the data, in the past. Fraud was possible, but it really wasn't economically scalable. And misinformation also wasn't economically scalable. Maybe I could debate whether the introduction of credit cards and loyalty cards was the tipping point where that started to get introduced, where massive amounts of data about us was collected, used without our knowledge. Fraud was introduced at a massive, scalable way through the credit cards. So let's talk about our journey today. We're still Canadians, that's us, waving our Canadian flag. Our journey looks drastically different, and it starts right here on our phones every day. We might shop or spend a bit of time online, might do a bit of business online, might work a little bit online and do a little bit of shopping online and go back to our news feeds again online. When we go to bed, we still have our phone in our hands. It's all happening over the internet. I believe that 6.5 hours per day is drastically underestimated as a result of the home working scenario that we now face as a nation. Sometimes, periodically, we take those relics out of our wallet, our credit cards and our identities, and we actually walk into shops and we show them and we do commerce in a physical way. Not that often. It's not really our favorite thing to do anymore. We spend most of our time on here, 2.5 hours a day, also grossly underestimated, where our information, our news, our socializing is happening all in the same place at massive scale. When I want to reach somebody for pennies on the dollar, I can reach hundreds of thousands of people through social media. We also happen to be doing most of our commerce online at scale on huge platforms that can reach anywhere in the world to get a product and ship to your door. These two ecosystems are collecting massive amounts of data about everybody in the process all the time. The result of this ecosystem is that we individually bear the burden of managing hundreds of usernames and passwords. I personally had a look at Chrome yesterday, 473 passwords, online accounts that I have, which is maybe outrageous. We still have access to the services that we used to have access to, and they've found a way for us to access them online, and they've maintained their job under regulation of the government to protect our information and our services. But make no mistake, they're taking some learnings from the other side of the market here, the new actors, the hyperscale platforms, and they're trying to apply those data kind of mentalities to our business relationships today, our banks, our telcos. Another interesting thing is that commerce and information and socializing online, they overlap at an uncomfortable level now. There's entire industries built around sharing data between these parties and actors about us and aggregating it. Not always the most comfortable thing to think about. And one more observation of today is that when I look across the Canadian landscape, if I were to measure the number of services that accept a government-issued and verifiable credential, it's in the dozens. Dozens, not hundreds. I think we have more than a dozen territories and provinces. This number is drastically underwhelming. So today's state of cyber and protection, unmanageable number of relationships. That burden is being pushed to the consumer, to the user, unfortunately, at the moment. Usernames and passwords are introducing more complexity and risk. We're eroding online privacy and trust. We're lacking protections because the new hyperscalers, they're not like the companies that were regulated and supported by trust relationships in the past. Governments are not issuing identity. I hate to say it if you're government in the crowd, but you're not doing your job. Fraud has become the consumer's problem. I have to know, I have to figure it out, right? There's no help anymore. I don't have the leverage of taking my business away from you if I'm not paying you for the service and you're just monetizing my data. Accountability is being lost for us here online. So services are free at the cost of our data. Fraud is profitable and it's economically viable at scale. Manipulation is economically viable at scale. For $500, you can get 13 offshore agents to peddle your message on 10 to 20 platforms. $500. Unbelievable. So much disruptive change, but some things do remain. So can we take some lessons into the future here? Government, private sector, and citizens always had to work together to combat fraud and evaluate trust in the previous ecosystem before the hyperscalers came. But we do have some new actors to consider, these hyperscaler platforms. And we do have an opportunity, and it necessitates us to collaborate on a cyber level. We're all fighting the same battle, and there's not enough collaboration at the cyber level happening across the nation. The government still needs to issue us identities, and that needs to happen online. It's your job, and you're behind if you're in the government and you're in the crowd. Government's there to support and protect the economy with policy and regulation, but existing policy has to evolve and new policies needed to address the hyperscalers. We, as actors, all of us, including now the hyperscalers and platforms, are required to combat fraud and disinformation. But government's got a big role in that, defining and bringing together accountability online. Regulation, incentives, education, IT hygiene are all really important factors for everybody, all actors in the ecosystem. But access at scale and economics that are driving the trends require a new solution that addresses those particular actors at the table, the big tech platforms. And we need, again, cyber collaboration. So I'm not going to read all of these, and somebody can take a picture, but the government has lists of things that they know they need to do, and we need to help them do them. Any one person doing their job in this equation doesn't equal success. Everybody has to do their job. We have to work together. In the past, we had protection because we had accountability. We had nomenclature and policies and processes that work together. We need that in the future. Our trusted brands need to be trustworthy. Please protect our data. Your brand can erode very quickly in the absence of that trust. We as citizens need to be vigilant. We're going to be living with usernames and passwords for a little while longer. So, if you think you're holding out for that killer credential, it's probably time to get a password manager. And we need to get the hyperscalers to the table. If they're not part of the solution, then they just continue to be part of the problem. Online accountability can't be solved without them, without government, without citizens, and without the private sector. So we're all accountable for protection online. Thank you.